I now reconvene the regular council meeting for Monday, September 9th, or 29th, 2025. Before we move on, we'd like to acknowledge this council meeting is being held on the homeland of the Tanaka people. Welcome to members of the gallery that are here tonight and anybody that's viewing remotely. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular council meeting of Monday, September 29th, 2025? Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bassett. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the minutes of the regular council meeting of Monday, September 9th, 2025, and the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of Monday, September 15th, 2025? Mover, Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you so much. Moving into bylaws. The first bylaw for consideration tonight is from Emerging Development Services regarding scheduling of a public hearing for amendments to the official community plan and the zoning bylaw for property located at 950 Wildstone Drive. I'll ask staff to provide a brief overview of this report, please.
Mr. Mayor, I just need to excuse myself for this one as it affects, I live right next door.
Certainly, thank you.
Yep. Hi. So as you can see, I'm not.
Rob, you're going to start?
Yeah, you betcha. I'm here for Connor and Santana tonight. So this is just a follow-up to the consideration of the application that council's had before you for amending the density for Lot 4. We were awaiting the results of the traffic impact assessment. So that came in just the other week. It's been reviewed by staff, and the comments regarding that have been included in the report. I will highlight that basically the report found that traffic operations at all intersections operate well under existing conditions and continue to operate well with an assumed growth rate of 2% for the 2027 to 2045 horizon without development. When additional traffic from the proposed developments are added, all movements at all study intersections continue to operate. The TIA concludes overall the proposed development is anticipated to have little to no impact on the existing transportation infrastructure in the area, and the site access onto Wildstone Drive are acceptable from a site distance perspective. So that's the results that we were waiting for before we were going to schedule the public hearing and proceed to APC. So we have this here. It's been, the report is attached and it has been made public, of course, so anybody in the neighborhood who wants to view it can. And based on that, we are recommending that council proceed with scheduling a public hearing for October 20th. And then it'll proceed to APC as well for consideration before it'll come back for third reading.
Thanks very much, Rob. Can I get a motion that council schedule a public hearing for the City of Cranbrook official community plan, our path to Cranbrook 2042 amendment bylaw number 4201/2025 and City of Cranbrook zoning amendment bylaw number 4202/2025 to be held October 20th, 2025 at 6 p.m. and to authorize staff to undertake public consultation. Mover, Councillor Popoff, Councillor Ray. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm going to oppose this based on consideration earlier, the opposition being shown by the neighborhood. I think we could have and should have maybe stopped it earlier. So although I appreciate the importance of public input, I will be voting against this proceeding.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. So I certainly appreciate residents' engagement on this issue to date, and I look forward to further engagement from the community at the public hearing. I will be voting in favor of this. As members of council, our fiduciary duty is to the City of Cranbrook. So at the City of Cranbrook, we have housing studies, so our own housing study, and then with further information from the province, which clearly indicates the need for housing in our community. And in addition to that, we highlight housing more than once in our strategic plan, and that is our guiding document that this council has set out. So both of those items, for me, inform our fiduciary duty. So because of that, I will be voting in favor of this next step in the process and certainly welcome and invite the engagement from the community. And I also look forward to this going to the Advisory Planning Commission or committee for their input as well.
Thank you. Councillor Peabody, then Councillor Lissette, then Councillor Papa.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Rob, I was just wondering if you could explain one thing. So the traffic impact study says that they don't expect any issues with a 2% increase in traffic. I'm just curious how, they're looking at building 252 units. How do they determine that's only going to be a 2% increase in the amount of traffic in that area?
Look at that. Councillor Peabody through the mayor, the 2% growth is just a background factor to account for background growth in the entire community.
Okay,
So they'll take that 2% growth added on to what's there today and then add on additional units. So it's 2% plus.
gotcha. So the 2% is not really an accurate number as far as the amount of traffic that's going to increase, just the overall population of Cranbrook.
It's 2% traffic growth that's the background studies. Just giving our background, what close to what we've been told by the province to accommodate for is the 1.8. So we've been using 2% on our background growth. So they do the study of the background and then what's the development going to impact on top of that. So that's really the development's additional to the 2%.
Okay, all right, no, that makes sense. Thank you.
Councillor Lissette.
Well, thank you. And the traffic impact study was an important part of moving forward. So it would be, and many of the letters in opposition were citing concerns about traffic. So now that information has been provided, those people can review this information. You were saying about 2% growth. Well, Cranbrook, our traditional growth is less than 1%. It was from 2016 to 2021, it was 0.5% per year or less, actually. So, it's the traffic impact study is overestimating our regular growth. So that's something to think about too. But I do think it's fine to go ahead to public hearing, see what people have to say, particularly in light of this new information that's come forward.
Thank you. Councillor Papa.
Thank you. Might as well jump in as well. And I too was waiting on the traffic impact assessment. It's proven that it's not an issue with respect to this development or even broader development in the surrounding area. So that was my piece that I wanted to wait for. It looks good. So it's time to go to public hearing and hopefully third reading. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, to make sure I'm on track, so just reviewing the staff report. So the report found that traffic operations at all intersections operate well under existing conditions and will continue to do so with this assumed growth rate of 2%. But in addition, the study says, even when we add the additional traffic from the proposed development, so we're taking the 2% background, but then we add the estimated traffic from the proposed development, even in that case, all intersections continue to operate well. So am I on the right track with that?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Further, council? All in favor? Opposed? The motion is passed and one opposed. Councillor Stetsky is opposed. Councillor Graham may return to the chambers. The next bylaw for consideration tonight is zone amendment bylaw number 4215/2025, which is back before council tonight for adoption. Can I get a motion that council adopt City of Cranbrook zoning bylaw amendment number 4215/2025? Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Lissette. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Next up is the OCP amendment for property located at 114 17A Avenue South, I'll ask staff to review this report for us, please.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council. This application's been received for the property as noted for 114 17A, 17A Ave South. It's a lot of abbreviations there. It's basically directly adjacent to Laurie Middle School grounds, just above the hill here. It's a vacant parcel that's about 0.22 hectares in size, and it's currently designated medium density in the OCP and zoned for medium density. The request that we've received is to change the OCP designation from medium to high density, basically taking it from 35 to 80 units per hectare, going to 80 to 120, which is the high density. But given the size of the property of 0.22 hectares, it would accommodate for about a proposed 24-unit apartment. And so this is just basically an increase in the density to facilitate slightly a few more units. And then should council concur with the recommendation, we'll be going to the public consultation and then a subsequent report for the zoning portion as well.
Thanks very much, Rob. Can I get a motion to council give first reading to City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan, Our Path to Cranbrook 2042 Amendment Bylaw number 4218/2025 and authorize staff to undertake public consultation on the proposed amendment bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor Ray, Councillor Graham. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Final bylaw for consideration tonight is another OCP amendment for the BC Builds project. I'll ask staff to review this report. Rob again.
Yeah, thank you.
Or Sean, Rob?
Yeah, perfect. So again, this amendment is being brought forward by actually the city staff in relation to the BC Builds property, which is the city-owned lands. Through the BC Builds review process, it was determined that in order to make the pro forma for the project work, they were looking at hoping to achieve a few more units on the site. The site is designated as medium density, which again is the 35 to 80. We're looking to go to high density land use designation, and then subsequent, if this is successful, it'll be subsequent zoning change to increase the unit count from 30 to 35. The issue is basically that the pro forma, if this would help it make it more feasible with the extra 5 units. And the initial limitation when the particularly the zoning, the OCP was medium density, was because of it was pre-knowledge and pre-construction of the Victoria Trunk sewer project. So at that time, there was a bit of the kind of cap to determine the level of development that could occur. And so we're trying to help support the project by pursuing the land use designation change and then subsequent zoning, essentially would amount to 5 more units.
Good, thanks, Rob. Can I get a motion that council give first reading to City of Cranbrook Official Community Plan, Our Path to Cranbrook 2042 Amendment Bylaw number 4220/2025 and authorize staff to undertake public consultation on the proposed amendment bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor Stetsky, Councillor Bissett. Discussion. Councillor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, Rob, when we first put this out, the BC Builds, the intent was the units were meant for workforce housing. Is that even with this adjustment and other discussions going forward, is it still for workforce housing?
Through the mayor to Councillor Popoff, I believe it still would be, as it's a BC Builds project and it still has to meet their mandate and requirements as well as their pro forma. So I don't know the exact details of those kind of fine details. I haven't been involved in those discussions, but it is still the BC Builds project. So
Okay.
Yeah.
When it was first before council, we had that conversation. I think we learned then that BC Builds is looking for not heavily subsidized housing or high-end market housing, but for general workforce housing. So you haven't heard anything different, so we'll go with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Further, council? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Moving into new business. First item of new business tonight is a report from Corporate Services regarding the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness and Community Safety and Wellbeing. I'll ask staff to review the report, please. Do we have Marcel or Mark?
Yeah, so I'll take that from Marcel.
Thank you.
So Mayor and Council is aware.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Rob.
When we created the position for the social development coordinator and started working on what are some of the gaps in the community? And not actually addressing the gaps, but finding ways that we can advocate for doing better in Cranbrook. One of the things that was noted was that there's housing as a provincial agency, there's healthcare, there's enforcement, both with bylaw and with the RCMP, there's first responders, the ambulance, the fire department, paramedics that are heading out to the sites. There's all the agencies involved for providing all of the services under third-party agreements with the province or nonprofits in Cranbrook, but they weren't really working in a concerted effort. Everybody was working under their own mandates, and so the results of that was a little uncoordinated. And so that's actually, one of the things when we just were in Ottawa or in Victoria, talking to the minister there is saying, one of our learnings is that coordinating those it helps a lot in the actual outcomes in the community. So way back in 2023, council directed staff to create the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness. And that's when that table got started, and just, probably oversharing here, but, at first when the meeting started, we had everybody from the business community to the social services sectors to housing. And there was a lot of emotions and a lot of very divergent viewpoints, and it was clear people hadn't worked together. And so it was, the first few months were very difficult to get through. And we had some turnover, but everybody eventually got to a place working together where that group came up with a number of recommendations on how cutting across agencies. So this is the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness. It's not the city. It was a group of representatives from across all spectrums getting together to work on solutions. And so out of that came the task force report. And then basically the task force would have met its mandate by producing that report, where now it's ready for other organizations and agencies to take forward the individual recommendations. However, that group felt they really hit a good stride and were working well together. And so in Cranbrook now we have a pretty significant level of collaboration and coordination between the organizations through that process. So they were kept on to begin the implementation of a number of the recommendations, and those things are now underway. And so the actual purpose and intent of the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness has met its goal. And so the report tonight is just for council approval to essentially disband the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness, as it has met its intent and goal. And that's what the difference is when you have a standing committee of council. It meets annually, or it runs annually, I should say, and continues, whereas a Mayor's Task Force is like a select committee of council. It's set aside for a certain purpose. Once that intent and purpose is met, then that group of folks is disbanded. So that's literally why task forces are used rather than a standing committee. So tonight we're just saying, you have the report, the recommendations are being implemented, the groups and agencies are all working well together in Cranbrook, and actually, we were proud to share that with some of the ministers in Victoria. And so we're just asking council now for approval to disband as they've met the mandate.
Thanks very much, Mark. Can I get a motion to council approve the formal decommissioning of the Mayor's Task Force on Homelessness, Community Safety and Wellbeing effective September 29th, 2025, recognizing the successful completion of its mandate and the transition of ongoing work to community stakeholders. So move, please. Councillor Bissett. Councillor Peabody. Discussion. Councillor Stetsky.
Thank you, Mayor. So is there consensus among the committee that this was an appropriate time to disband?
Yeah, so that's been a point of discussion, yes.
Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank all the members of this task force for their excellent work. I think, the collaboration has increased significantly, and which really enhances the good work that was already underway to make it even better. And it has taken some time to get some positive traction, but we have achieved that, and we need to continue that work. So yeah, just really want to thank them. And I certainly am happy to support this motion. Looking forward, I understand that we're going to have an update as part of the budget process regarding our other mayor's task force regarding housing. And so I look forward to us getting similar traction in that area as the months move forward. And we have about a year left in this council's term. So looking forward to positive progress there as well.
Thank you. Mark, do you have a comment?
Yeah, so thank you for that comment. And I just wanted to go back to Councillor Stetsky's, like, don't get the wrong impression that everybody's leaving and going home. It's now that, like, for the Fresh Start Foundation, for example, was created under that umbrella, and a number of organizations that were within the task force still carry on and work together in that. Like, so it's become from this umbrella to more specific focused initiatives.
Further, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Before we move on, I would like to thank council for supporting this initiative when we brought it forward. And certainly I want to thank all the participants that volunteered their time. This was voluntary. All the organizations and agencies who were involved with the task force. It was voluntary. And these are the people in the trenches, you know, and when we first formed the task force, until the time we disbanded, I saw a transformation that was, I felt incredible amongst the players, the group. And, you know, sometimes you look back and there's people in the community say, so what changed? Well, I liken that to, I spent over 20 years in the fire service with the fire prevention. And they used to send the fire say, so what's the big deal with prevention? We're here to fight fires and we fight fires. So what does prevention do? Well, you don't really see what it does, because if you have proper preventions in place and you're changing and right, you don't see the changes because nothing bad happens. So, you know, we still see issues ongoing out there. This is going to be a generational problem to fix the woes that we have in every city in across probably around the world now. It's getting that bad, but I can assure you that the people involved with this task force, they have now moved beyond that, and they are working on some of the initiatives that the task force recommended. So within our community, you're not going to see a wholesale change, but make no mistake, they are making a difference out there day to day. And you know, people forget, these are the people that are in the trenches day to day dealing with that stuff, and they're committed to this. So thanks so much, everybody that was involved. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, and you just raised something I forgot to mention, that, you know, everybody getting together and working together did have noticeable differences in Cranbrook. And, you know, it was a few years back, if you remember, the tent camp along Ridgeview and all the problems associated with that, with patrons to McDonald's and Dairy Queen, and how the visitor population viewed Cranbrook. You don't see that anymore. So there's an outcome. We produced some media releases showing the actual statistical decline on demands of our first responder services. That's a valid statistical reinforcement of the work that's being done, showing some positive proof. And so I guess when we met with other ministers and other communities, we realized that, you know, we have moved the needle. And so these groups need to be proud that we did move the needle in Cranbrook on something that it's happening all over the world. And Cranbrook is not alone struggling with this. So this group did some really good work, but now it's just time to turn the page and move on to the next chapter.
Good point, Mark. Thank you very much. Next item is from our finance department regarding the 2026 permissive tax exemptions. We have Charlotte here to speak to this. Welcome, Charlotte.
Thank you, Mayor. This report seeks Council's direction to bring forward the 2026 permissive property tax exemption bylaw. The bylaw must be adopted and submitted to BC Assessment prior to October 31st. There are 57 eligible properties applying for permissive tax exemptions. The city's policy, per the city's policy, the total value on non-city owned properties should not exceed 1% of the current year's tax requisition. This cap does not apply to city-owned properties. For this year's intake for 2026 exemptions, the cap is $384,090. If all non-city owned properties are fully exempted to the limits established in the policy, the value of these exemptions will be approximately $308,470. There are two new applications. The Tanaha Nation Council Society, property located at 32 9th Avenue South. This organization provides priority care and resources to vulnerable populations. The estimated exemption is valued at $16,410. Also new is another application from Nexus Community Support Society located at 113 19th Street South. At that property houses and supports individuals with diverse abilities. The individuals who reside in the residence receive 24/7 support provided by the organization. The estimated exemption is valued is $4,321. Permissive tax exemption applications received for city-owned properties are valued at approximately $97,600. And that would be the History Center, the seniors property up above here. The total permissive exemptions on city-owned and non-city-owned land is estimated at $406,120. The exact value of the exemptions will not be known until 2026, when BC Assessment releases the revised property tax roll and the city sets the 2026 tax rates. Staff are bringing forward an amendment to the permissive property tax exemption policy in November. The proposed amendments include changing the application deadline to May 31st, reducing the exemption cap to align with the cap on municipal grants, and increasing the term of exemptions up to 4 years from the current standard of 1 year, starting in 2028. So those proposed amendments would be effective for the next intake of the permissive tax exemptions, so for the 2027 permissive tax exemptions. Staff are also planning further discussions on the policy in the new year.
Thank you, Charlotte. Can I get a motion that council receives the list of 2026 permissive property tax exemptions applications, and further that council directs staff to bring forward for 3 readings the annual taxation exemption bylaw based on the information in the attached list of eligible applicants and any changes to the list resulted from council's discussion? The mover, please. Councillor Graham, Councillor Ray. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. It's carried unanimously. Thanks, Charlotte. And the final report tonight is from Engineering Development Services Department regarding the development cost charge bylaw update. I'll ask staff to review the report. We have Mike and Curtis going to speak to this.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm not sure this will go as quick as all the others, but I hope so.
We'll see how it goes.
So following up on the committee of the whole meeting of September 15th, staff are bringing back a number of items here to get council's opinion on. We give them as a decision for council. So there's several different items. I'm hoping to go through each one separately and we can talk about them before council introduces it. Some are going to be quicker than others, but yeah, so to dive right in, the first one is to do with including a suite within the low density residential rate. So there was discussion at the committee of the whole on this one about not including it, but to have that formally decided or not, to leave that up to council.
Sorry. Pardon me?
Yeah.
Are we picking options at this point, A or 1A or 1B?
I'm just trying to catch up here. I'm just looking at this thing here for a minute. Yeah.
If so, I opt for 1A, not to include suite within low density residential DCC rate.
His secretary, Councillor Teskey. Discussion. Councillor Graham.
Yeah, thank you. I would just like to know why you wouldn't want it included at time versus having a DCC come, correct me if I'm wrong, but if it's not included and somebody wants to put a suite in, they have to pay for it 5 years down the road. But if it is included, it's already paid for. So 5 years down the road, they could put a suite in and not pay a DCC. Is that the premise of it?
Councillor Graham through the mayor, that's correct. The sticking point, I would say, is from staff's understanding of council's discussion at that time, the committee of the whole, was that it increases the cost almost. It was quite significant. I don't have the number exactly in front of me here right now, but it was tens of thousands of dollars.
224%.
Yes.
Further? So Curtis, just so I'm clear, the council directs staff to draft the DC bylaw to not include a suite within the low-density residential DCC rate. So does that mean we're not going to charge DCCs for suites? Because if you look at the other one, that the council draft, the other option that council direct staff to draft the DCC bylaw to include a suite within the low density residential. So I'm confused with what we're,
So the intent
probably
of,
just me.
so Mayor Price, the intent of 1A is to have the lower DCC single family rate, I'll call it low density rate, which doesn't include a suite. So if somebody comes in to build a suite, to renovate a house, to include a suite, they would have to pay. But the next number 2, getting out of order here, is to talk about that limit to try and increase it so they don't have to pay if their value is underneath. So does that clarify?
Yeah, it sure does. Yeah. Councillor Ray and then Councillor Bassett. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Mayor. So from my recollection, part of the conversation at the committee of the whole was not everybody necessarily wants to have a secondary suite for whatever reason. They don't want to be a landlord. They don't want to incur that, whatever. So to include that fee in everyone's DCC, we're charging probably a lot of folks who really never intend to have a secondary suite. So that was one consideration. The other consideration was to make the price point more affordable, right?
Yep.
So I had time earlier today to look back at our presentation from the committee of the whole. So with the suite included, the proposed DCC for with the secondary suite included was $37,533. With the charge for secondary suite not included, so it would be a separate charge. Like if I down the road decide, yep, I want to build a suite, at that point I would pay those DCCs. So without the suite included, the proposed DCC is $24,039. So the motion is saying we're going to exclude the secondary suite, and part of the consideration is that it's a more affordable price point.
Okay, thank you. Further? Call the question, all in favor? Opposed? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Go ahead, Curtis.
Thank you, Mayor Price and Council. The second item we have to go through is the building permit exemption value. The legislative value is 50,000. However, there's discussion that if we increase this value, it exempts certain types of development from having to pay DCC, such as suites that are under that value. So option A, after the committee of the whole staff went back and we talked about it, and the recommendation from CAO Furcho was to increase the value to 120 as the recommended, just because of prices, cost increases due to building inflationary factors. A lot of other communities have done 100,000, but that's a few years ago now, and some are more current, but it just followed suit. So we felt 120,000 might be more appropriate, but the 3 options for council are 2A is that we set that exemption value at 120,000. B is that we set it at the legislated 50,000, or C is if council wants to give another value above $50,000.
Thank you. Option?
Mayor Price, I'd like to move option 2A, please. That's exemption value to $120,000.
Secondary, Council Popoff. Discussion? Councilor Ray, Council Popoff.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we discussed in the committee of the whole, I think everyone's aware of the increase in construction prices. And so this exemption gives people a more doable budget that will be DCC exempt. And then if they exceed that amount, they would then pay DCCs on the excess, correct? So we just felt $50,000 does not take you very far. In my opinion, I do not think it, and I am not an expert in construction, even I know $50,000 is not going to build you a secondary suite, I don't think. So I fully support the exemption value up to $120,000. And this is, again, another way for us to show that we are trying to incentivize folks who want to build a secondary suite, that we're trying to support that in an appropriate way.
Great, thank you. Councilor Papa.
Yes, and thank you, Mayor. And that was the point. We want to incentivize homeowners to consider a secondary suite, whether it's their family or other, and let's get more infill housing, suitable infill housing in our community. Let's incentivize them to be able to do that.
Thank you. Further? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Back to you, Curtis.
Thank you, Mayor Price and Council again. The next one here is, it's going to be the big one, going through the project list. These projects, and I'll bring them up on the screen so we can do this real lifetime and actually calculate what the rates could be once we go through them. The projects have been determined by experts in the field through our studies and reports that have been done throughout the last few years, such as the downtown master plan, our sanitary sewer master plan update, our water master plan. We've brought in traffic engineers to help look at the projects and ROCP, things like that. So it's almost where the rubber hits the road and all this work we've been doing and how we want to pay for it. So the thought I'd want to put into council's head, if they can, is that a lot of these projects need to be done depending on where development is in Cranbrook. What we're looking at is if we want to pay for them with DCCs or if we want to pay for them with tax dollars, we want to try for grants, or do we want to just leave it, and if it happens in the future, we can figure it out at that point. But this is one way for us to try and get money to work towards it if we want to do that. So I'm going to just share my screen. So I've provided a copy on your desk as well, so if it's easier to see in our copy, I know it's tough on your iPads as well. And thanks for some of the recommendations today from individual councillors on going through and what projects were in the current bylaw, which ones are new. So the green projects are the ones that are currently in the bylaw. The orange or yellowy color ones are new ones that have come out of recent work, or they've come out of because of the increased growth rate. And I'll explain that in a sec. And the red ones are ones that staff did not include in the cost estimate to get to the 24,000. So that's what brings us up to the 31,000 mark roughly. But we felt we should discuss them here anyways. So one of the items that did increase the number of projects is the growth rate. So the province has mandated us essentially to look at a 1.8% growth rate. We know that's higher than what Cranbrook's been in the past, but it's twofold implication on the DCC rates. One, it adds projects, but adds costs. However, we also, on the flip side, there's more units being created, so it lowers the rate too. So we'd have to go back and do all the calculations again, remove the projects and decrease the number of units. So if you remember how it was calculated, we take the sum of all the projects, remove the benefit allocation to existing, then there's a CIS factor, and that's whatever is remaining as the DCC rate divided by the number of units. So if we have less growth, there's less numbers to accommodate to divide it equally among.
Councilor Brissette.
So we acknowledge that the 1.8% growth is an overestimation, and that's per annum. I'm assuming. So how is it, and so if we don't get the growth, but yet we are charging for it, is there a way around that? How do we, like, if our actual growth is what it has been at less than 0.5, then, you know, we're looking at tripling the amount we're charging. So is there a way to reduce that so we're not doing that? Or do we just get rid of all the red and orange and stick with the green? And
So it's not, Councillor Blissett through the mayor's part of me. So it's not exactly tripling it from what we are now, because we're adding all these projects in for growth, but we're also adding a bunch of units in to divide the cost that comes associated with it too. So by removing going to a 0.85% growth rate and removing a bunch of the yellow, we might actually be a higher DCC rate than the 1.8. It's just in the math, but we haven't done that calculation because the minister or the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, the Inspector of Municipalities must approve the bylaw. So to work with a 0.85% growth rate, they're not going to approve it, to be blunt. So we're kind of stuck, unfortunately, but it's a great question.
Councillor Graham?
Yeah, thank you. I was gonna kind of highlight on that and you know, look at our historical trends and look at how much money we have in the DCC account or how much we've had come through there, is nowhere even close to what we need for anything like this. So like, I don't think, like, it's great, these projects are important, but their DCCs aren't going to pay for these. It's unrealistic. It's not going to happen. From like over 15 years, we've seen Cranbrook's population grow by 12.2%. That's 0.8% a year, and that's taking in the boom years. For boom years, that's where we were close to 2%, close to what the province is listed. So like, it's great, and I understand the work behind it and what the province is requiring of us, but I think I asked Charlotte like a year ago from 2009 till now, what we brought in DCCs, and it's just under $5 million. So from there to there, that's $5 million in this one project. The thing here is 100 million. Like, it's not realistic. So that is a big concern for me, on top of the fact that we're looking at raising DCC rates by 100% on every category across the board. So that will literally kill development. Because that there, you know, we sit there at UBCM, we sit there and listen to the federal government, we sit there and listen to the provincial government, and every one of them keeps pointing down at municipalities and say municipalities got to cut red tape and got to make housing more affordable. Well, this does absolutely nothing to address that. What we have now is a list of great projects that we can't fund, and we're going to use development, which we won't get, to fund it. So in 10 years from now, we'll be sitting here with the same things on the table because we don't have the money to do it. We might raise another 15 million.
Thank you. Councillor Wright?
Thank you, Mayor. So just to clarify, in terms of the proposed DCCs that we discussed at the Committee of the Whole, those were calculated using the items marked in green and the items marked in orange. Is that correct?
Correct. There is a small discrepancy. I couldn't calculate it. It's about $1,400 or so. But because first I need to talk with Urban Systems, who made the spreadsheet. Off today out of self-service, but we'll figure that out in the next coming days.
Okay, yeah. So just to clarify, the items that are marked in red, those are the items that our management team already said, you know what, we're going to take those out of the calculation, correct?
Yes, and I'll explain why, but if council wants to include them, we can include them and look at the rate or cut other ones. It's,
okay.
But
yeah, just trying to make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what we're looking at. So the proposed DCCs look at the orange and the yellow. If you looked at our current DCCs now, and then the proposed DCCs that we discussed at the Committee of the Whole, would you characterize our current DCCs as being too low, being where they should be? You know, do you want to discuss that a little bit? Like, why are we looking at increasing our DCCs? How much money do we have put away for DCCs?
thank you, Councillor Ray through Mayor. Our current DCC rate is low compared to other communities that are currently adopting new DCCs. A lot of that has to do with the costs have escalated quite a bit since then, even though it's only been a handful of years. The bylaw was from 2002, but it took a couple of years to get there. So the actual cost estimates were around 2,000. We saw quite a bit of inflation in the construction industry, as we're aware of. The other thing that's come up, we've done a lot of plans and studies to address, review the projects, and create new projects with this council and the previous council. That it's great work, a lot of work on council's part and staff's part. So it's to update that to more reflect the direction that this council wants to go in and provide these new projects from what we could see in say the OCP or the downtown revitalization master plan. And the other one is the growth rate, given all the changes in the legislation in regards to fourplexes, threeplexes, duplexes, accessory dwellings. Those weren't accounted for in our old bylaw because that's come out since. So that's one of the reasons in the push why we're updating it. And also it's good practice to do it every 5 years, a new bylaw, to keep it up to date. So costs are up to date, the projects are up to date, the program's up to date. That's one of the places we ran into with the old bylaw, the really old bylaw from 2004, is that those numbers and projects were from around 1999. And that's why we weren't collecting the funds. It wasn't a sustaining project. However, with the current bylaw, you can see what we've done with Victoria as a prime example. That project and that trunk main is a development cost charge project, and it's driving it. Having that new sewer that's allowing for the green home, a number of many dwelling units, the new apartment that's in behind Save on Foods. Being proactive is helping bring development and allowing it, because we'd otherwise have to say no to these developments. And I couldn't imagine saying no to the green home, for example. So we can keep going through council's questions. What I was hoping to do with this list was just quickly go through each project and see what council's thoughts, just to keep things moving. But if council's got more questions, I'm happy to, before we get started here.
Thank you, Chris. Councillor Teske.
Yeah, thank you. Just a heads up, and not directly related to the exercise, but Gregor Robertson, former mayor of Vancouver and now the federal minister for housing, talked about housing, but he also said that DCCs are an impediment to growth, and come about in November, the federal government intends to get involved with DCCs. So that's a stretch for federal government to reach all the way down into municipalities, but we'll see what comes out of that one. Just a heads up.
Go ahead, Curtis.
No, thank you. So I was hoping to go through the water projects first, because I think this is where we're going to get some of our biggest bang for in terms of projects that ones that staff have not included, ones that we may not have to include, things like that. So the first project is W1. It's a disinfection facility. We're currently under design and hope to get constructed shortly here. We've got a significant grant for this. It's $534 per DCC fee. The W1A that's the interest costs for the facility. The reasons staff didn't include that in the cost is because if we had proper DCCs before, the developers we would have had the money, we would have been paying it. So we're really throwing it on future developers. Us not having proper rates was the thought of staff. I'll just keep going unless the council wants to stop. We can. That works.
Well, that one's almost a no-brainer, isn't it? That we really don't have a choice, do we, on that one?
Well, we're doing the project right now. If we would have to, we do have a borrowing bylaw where we could cover it all, but that's,
Well,
growth can pay for the portion, or taxpayers
And
can
I
pay
think-
for it. We're moving forward. Right?
yeah, and I see that, Curtis, going down the road, we can, council can decide, what, we don't want this one, we don't want this one. But one of these projects is going forward, it's just exactly like our UV project or our Gold Creek Dam project. And you know what, if we've got no DCC money, you know where we're going. We're either going right to the taxpayer that year for the full cost, that which we know that's not going to happen. We're probably going to borrow.
Yes,
So
I think
we know that borrowing's going to
And Mayor Price, that's a good point. Like staff have looked extensively at these projects to ensure there's nothing on here that doesn't need to be there. And going through this exercise of going over the projects, it's not really conventionally something that would happen through a DCC exercise. As you know, we're setting policy as a staff exercise to look at the projects. But I would like to clarify, you know, historically, we've not collected enough DCCs and we haven't had the right amount of projects, and we're paying for that in more ways than one right now. We have no reason to believe that if we carry through with this project list and these rates, that we will be over prescribed or have too much funding. Most communities are going to say they're not building in enough escalators on their DCC costs, and we could look at this 5 years from now and it could increase again. So I guess that's just kind of looking at it from the tone of the conversation, that it's more or less looking at the policy. As Curtis alluded to, the projects do need to happen or else growth can't occur. We've been close to, you know, if that Victoria Avenue project did not happen, there's a chance that we have to say no or defer, you know, a $300 million investment that's coming into the community. So we certainly understand the costs and the burdens that these DCC rates does have on development, but alternatively, we would suggest we look at other ways to meet that through the revitalization tax exemptions. Those are ways that we can lift burdens off of development costs, but sacrificing infrastructure investments is one of the least recommended ways to talk about how we're going to help facilitate growth and development in housing.
Great. Thanks for that explanation, Mike. Back to you, Chris.
Carry on. Thank you. W2 is the water transmission main from the Phillips Reservoir down to what's called Reservoir 1. It's a further down project. So it's replacing the main reservoir, the main trunk main with a bigger size pipe. W2A is the interest cost for that project. It's currently in our 5-year plan. We didn't include the interest cost for the same reason, is because if we had adequate DCC rates for the past 20 years, we shouldn't have to borrow for it. W3 is the Reservoir 1. It's a water reservoir near Idlewild at the top of that zone to prevent balancing and fire flows. W4 is a Reservoir 2, is the top of Zone 3. It's the same idea. It's to provide the peak hour flows, so it's to help maintain our system. W5 is, the project's still listed, but it's $0. It's just the water main extension that went out to Shadow Mountain to service that sewer project area. But W6 is a new groundwater well, deep well. It's in the gravel pit. W7 is to provide backup generators to all 4 wells. W8 is the growth component of the Gold Creek Dam. W9 is the Phillips Reservoir Bypass Pipe and Intake Project that we applied for a grant for. So if we get the grant, we can remove the project, but we don't, that'll have to wait until we find out. W10 is a pressure reducing station on Cobham Road near King Street and Salvador Ready Mix. We've got some fire flow issues down in that area. So we're looking at adding that to alleviate that, especially if we're looking at potentially developing a site nearby. W11 is on the highway between 22nd North towards out of town. There's a section of trunk main that's missing for the internal looping. W12 is a water main up on Industrial Road 2 from a pressure reducing station where it turns into Echo Field down to Mission Crescent, Grandview Place. That's to accommodate for more industrial growth in the industrial park. W13 is the water mains, when we replace our water mains downtown, to upsize them to allow for more density and more fire flow. W14 is to provide internal trunk mains on a couple sections missing down by Panorama Road and 30th Avenue in the Regency RV Park. just there's some missing links in there that if we see development down there, we have to connect those for fire flow. And then a couple projects that staff left off because they're just hitting on the 20-year mark at the 1.8% are twinning our East Hill trunk main in certain sections. So they're significant projects, but they're near the 20-year mark. So it's something that we felt we could take out and talk about in 4 or 5 years' time in the new bylaw.
Thank you, Mayor Price. So as is noted on a couple of big projects here, just to clarify for everyone, you know, we have it in our DCC list. I presume we continue to actively seek grants, and wherever we can seek grants and hopefully receive them, we're very happy to then apply this grant funding and adjust accordingly.
Councilor, right through the mayor, that's correct. If we can get grants for a project, we can, and a lot of grants actually ask if we're DCC funding the growth portion because they don't like funding growth for some reason. So DCC projects might actually help us get grants.
Councilor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, and thank you for this, Chris. So at our committee of the whole, as we're going around asking questions, the void I think I had, I think others was, you know, what are we're currently charging DCCs for certain projects. What are those current projects that we're charging DCCs on at the current 2022 rate?
Yeah.
And I'm like to understand that on this page, those that are in green are the ones that we're charging DCCs on at the 2022 DCC rate?
That's correct.
Okay, good. That's half the question. So then now we're coming to the yellow ones, orange ones, yellow, orange. Those are not part of the current 2022 DCC projects?
Correct.
So these are the ones we need to double the DCCs, add to and double the DCCs on to get these in the queue?
Some of these, Councillor Popoff through the mayor, some of the yellow orange projects are added either due to time, because it's been that time for growth, or it's due to that 1.8%. But it's not just, the doubling just isn't from the yellow projects. The green projects also have an updated cost as well to reflect that cost inflation that's occurred over the last few years.
Okay, so the yellow / pumpkin orange were not previously on our list. We're now adding them to the list. There's no DCCs at all on them right now, and we want to bring them in not at the 22 rate, but double it to what we want to do for the 2025. That's what staff is proposing. And if we don't do this for the orange pumpkins, then it's all city taxes. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, that's good. So moving on to the roads ones, these are the next more interesting ones. R1, it's 4-lane divided. So we're just adding the divider from Van Horn Street so the highway to Kootenai Street on Victoria. So it's to alleviate the problems with 2nd Street North and the parking lots where people are undertaking illegal left turns. R2, this project has changed, even though it's still green, it's changed, but it's been reduced, is that installing right in and right out at 4th Street North and 8th Street North on Victoria. Before we had dividing the whole road, but to decrease the cost of the project, we've just added the pork chops in. R3 is a new project. It's to upgrade Victoria from 3rd Street South to 13th Street South, so near city limits, towards city limits south. It's adding a 3rd right lane when you head out of town towards Gold Creek. All right. R4, this is one of the first big, it was in there before, but the prices have been increased due to the reports we've done. It's the 6th Street Northwest widening project from Industrial Road 2 to Kootenai Street. That includes the intersection with the highway and the signalizations of those intersections. So this project's needed to accommodate growth on the west side of the city.
Oh, Councilor Graham, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Was this the project that involved taking over huge swaths of private property? Like if we're having to annex a bunch of stuff and that's why the costs are so high?
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Peabody?
Thank you, Mayor. So, sorry, just going back to R003 with the Victoria Avenue upgrade. So are we looking at doing like a passing lane going up that hill? Or just a turning lane to get onto, what is it, 10th Avenue?
So it would be adding a third lane, so 2 lanes towards heading out of town that would stop when you hit 13th Street where you could either go left or right. What's happening now with traffic is that most people are moving into that left-hand lane fairly early by the Recplex and staying in the left-hand lane. So it's to divide the traffic if you're going out of town at the RDK or if you're gonna stay in the community towards Southview and Orchard Heights. So it's to accommodate more traffic volume.
Okay, sir, just make sure I have this clear. So is this the hill going up just past Kingsman Park?
Correct.
Yeah. I feel like that's a noisy street as it is, just being single lane. I'm concerned that if we put 2 lanes, is it 2 lanes coming down or 2 lanes going up?
2 lanes coming up out of town.
Yeah,
So we'd leave it 1 coming in.
1 coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a fear that that's gonna turn into a high-speed passing lane for trucks and cause the people in that community a lot of grief with the noise.
I think the traffic modeling that we've done, sorry, Councillor Peabody through the mayor, the traffic will come. So building it will not cause the traffic to increase. It's to accommodate the traffic. And right now it's for those right-hand turning movements, people are going to be backed up and queuing. People are going to be stopped on the top of that hill. In winter, they're going to be unable to continue driving up the hill if they don't have this right-hand lane that would allow them to go off and exit.
So you're seeing traffic backing up all the way.
That's what the modeling, that's what the growth modeling is showing, and we're seeing continued developments in that south area.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Councillor Graham?
Just wondering if we could just push that one over to the regional district, maybe they could pay for it because it's taking people out of town.
RDK.
Councillor Graham, through the mayor, we will be discussing with if we're successful with getting some budget for doing some growth planning work with the RDK. That conversation we've had with council. Part of that conversation will be talking about what mechanisms we have to work with the RDK to support growth components of infrastructure that happen outside of city limits. So that is well noted.
A little off topic, but right there, are we currently involved with growth planning with the RDK? Is that starting to move forward?
Mayor Price, we're having discussions on it. It does require some work, so we do have a budget request that's going to be in front of council to formalize what that plan would be. As we do from a staff perspective, we don't have the capacity with the work that we're doing from a development perspective, so we would need some consulting support to help go through that process.
Fantastic. So bring it to council, then we can take it up to RDK. Thank you. Councillor Papa.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So your terminology is growth rate modeling, and it's growth rate modeling using the provincial growth rate percentage, which may be double what our current and historical growth rate percentages are. So we have no way of, if that's correct, we have no way of adjusting this to what the real growth rate projections are versus what the provinces tell us. There was a bit of a conversation on that earlier, but why are we using a false growth rate modeling that the province is giving us if we know what the anticipated real one is? If I got that right.
No, that's a good question, Councillor Papa through the mayor. As Curtis alluded to, the province has mandated us to use those growth rates for policy. And this policy is something that the province is going to have to approve in order for it to be adopted and passed. And we also, historical, we have had lower growth numbers. What we're seeing right now with 300 units being in the queue from a building permit perspective, staff feel that we're going to see more growth and a higher growth rate than what we have been experiencing recently. But yes, it's not a perfect science.
So thank you. Okay, eventually the growth is going to be there eventually, but when you're showing your timings, 2027 to 2031, and you factor in the real one, it might be 2045. 35 or 45 at that point. So we're going to be charging a 75% new development rates now, that something might be 20, 30 years down the road due to the real growth rate in that area versus what the province is telling us to use. Not at all. Was I totally off base here? Or?
Councillor Popoff, through the mayor, we completely understand what you're saying. If we do have a lot less growth, then these projects will potentially be pushed out further. If we do achieve that growth target, we will need these projects to take place in order to accommodate the growth. So it is a difficult and it is a challenging subject. Again, we have not had situations, and we don't anticipate even with this growth component in here of having excessive amounts of DCC funds that we will have sitting in the bank because we've collected too much.
Yeah, good luck. Thanks. Thanks.
I would like to add that the timing numbers haven't been updated since the last bylaw work, so we still have to update them from a technical perspective for the timing. They're out of date and they're not updated in the spreadsheet. Okay. The next project is R5, is Theater Road from the highway to Rex Road, which is just an unbuilt road just past the asphalt plant. So we're looking at 4-laning undivided roadway from the highway out past McPhee, so past Home Depot. 4 lanes. R6 is what's called 22nd Street North. It's to build in an undivided, it's to build the 4th leg of 22nd North, so the last set of traffic lights on the way out of town, to build the other leg that goes towards Panorama Road. R7 is 11th Street South from 14th Ave to 16th Ave South. That's in behind the Catholic Church. R8 is 11th Avenue South from 11th Street to 16th Street South. R9 is a longer term one. It's to extend Innes Avenue to Highway 3. So it's just the planning, design, and land acquisition portion of that. It's one of those long-term ones. So it's not actually the construction, it's just the land acquisition and planning. R10 is to build First Avenue South from 11th Street South to 15th Street South. So that's in behind Parkland School. Up by Elizabeth Lake. So we'd go from Innes Avenue up to First Avenue. R11 is signalization of Ridgeview Road and Willowbrook. R12 is a multi-use path along Ridgeview Road, coming from the active transportation plan. R13 is Theater Road, is a Theater Road Ridgeview intersection signalization and upgrades.
Councillor Graham has a question. Sure.
And just to go back to that R12, would that be like when you say along the road, is it like literally like along the road, or would we put it up on an area where it's not squishing traffic flow?
It's following that corridor. We haven't planned out if it would be right beside the road and the lights. There is room there for a sidewalk or something, but we could look at putting that up on the berm, for example. R14 is to construct an extension of Ridgeview Road from Willowbrook Drive to 22nd Street North. So this is behind Top Crop in the transfer station. R15 is the construction of 17th Street South, undivided from, some of it was done as part of the Southwood Heights development, but it's to continue from 4th Avenue South all the way to 14th Avenue South to get the east-west connector in the south. R16 is to signalize Industrial Road 2 and Industrial Road G. That's the entrance to Moyer Park intersection. R17 is the Victorian Highway 3 intersection. R18 is to fix the intersection by the hospital at Second Street North and 23rd and 24th Avenue. So that's the hospital, that offset T intersection by the hospital on the way to the college. And R19 is to install a roundabout at Kootenai Street and 30th Ave North where the College Way extension would come into. There's no questions on that. I'll move.
Councillor Graham, Councillor Peabody.
Yeah, just on that roundabout at Kootenai Street and 30th Ave, like that's that road that isn't done yet. So, and there's no date on this, so does that mean that we're not gonna see that road done for a long time? So just put a traffic circle in there.
Councillor Graham, through the mayor, that's a great question. We're hoping that the work is going to continue with the college. They do have the funding for it to bring that intersection live. But the plan is, and we have proactively communicated this, with council, as we've planned and made sure that the right-of-way acquisition work being done there could accommodate a roundabout, as we feel it would be the most economic way of improving that intersection in the future when growth does occur.
Just to follow up to that, wouldn't it be just because they're going to be putting an intersection in there, wouldn't it be maybe cheaper just to do it now versus wait 7 years kind of thing? Because they're already be paving, there's already going to be some stuff, or is that not feasible?
Councillor Graham, to the mayor, we had those discussions at a high level with the college. Their funding was limited to the work that they've been approved for. We did ask that, but it was a pretty quickly turned down. There may be opportunities should the college have additional growth work on their own site that would trigger this. Then we could certainly have that conversation with them contributing.
Councillor Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Mike, you might have just answered this question, but yeah, if the road that the college is building is triggering the city to build a roundabout, is the college not sharing the cost or paying for this roundabout?
So the road that they're building right now isn't triggering the need for the roundabout as it stands. The intersection just being a conventional three-way intersection will work. There could be some signage work, but if the college land does develop, because they do have developable land, they can pay DCCs, or if it's a development, if it's in here, then it would be a DCC driven project. And if the development on their land does trigger it, then they would be certainly contributing at that time.
Councillor Stetsky.
So recently I chatted with ICBC and they still will provide funding for roundabouts.
Moving on to the sanitary sewer system updates. Sanitary project 1 is sorry, this is a continuation of the work we're doing this year, actually, in 15th Ave South to Baker Park from 1st Street to 4th Street. So it's continuing up and behind the dome along 1st Street. Sanitary project 2A is work we're actually doing this year. It's that big manhole that was diversion structure installed in the intersection of 6th Street North. So it's already completed under the current bylaw. Sanitary project 2B is going from 6th Street North to 2nd Street North along Victoria. That's work currently underway and almost complete. Sanitary project 2C is going the other way. We'd be looking to doing that in the future, and that's from the highway to 6th Street North. Once that diversion structure doesn't have capacity in a few years. Sanitary project 3 again is that trunk main, and this is the Ballman Park portion. Sanitary project 4. We're doing some of this project this year. It's Joseph Creek along Joseph Creek from 4th Street South to 7th Street South. So this isn't by St. Mary's School. So we've even sped this project up, just given the Creekside townhomes that are being built. Some new projects that have come out of the modeling due to the growth rate or sanitary project 5, the panorama sewer trunk. This is the area around 30th Ave North to the north end of the strip. It's just near capacity. If we see a bunch of development in the north end that we've got proposed, it needs to be done fairly soon. Sanitary project 6, it's called the West Side Interceptor trunk. It's a to alleviate the west side trunk when we do the downtown work, working towards the south. Project sanitary number 7, this is the downtown sewer trunk main upgrades for the downtown density, part of the downtown revitalization master plan. Sanitary project 8 is to upsize a portion of the transfer pipeline out to the spray irrigation fields. Sanitary project 9 is updating the transfer pump house with additional screen and pumping upgrades within the city. Sanitary project 10 is to put a transfer pump station between storage pond 1 and 2 out at the spray irrigations to provide us more capacity. Sanitary project 11 is to add a 4th UV reactor out of the spray irrigation site to accommodate for growth.
Curtis, on these total capital costs where you don't have any timing on them, so they're years out. Right now, you got them at 300. Say that last one, $390,000. What's the likelihood of time and the actual cost? Have you predicted the cost and adjusted or the timing and adjusted the cost?
So we still have to update the timelines. These timelines haven't been updated yet.
Yeah.
I apologize. We haven't done that yet as the technical group. However, all of these projects at the 1.8% growth rate are triggered within a 20-year time frame, given the modeling.
Yeah. Based on today's costs.
Based on today's costs. So the idea is in every year or two, depending on cost, we can either build CPI into the bylaw, or we'll come back every 5 years and update the costs.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thanks.
So the storm sewer system, the one existing project now is on 30th Avenue North to upsize a storm sewer that's undersized for the growth. A couple new projects are going from that 30th Avenue North to the creek to upsize as well, given additional growth. It increases the size. And the other project is to upsize the storm sewer on 6th Street Northwest when that big road project is done, because that area services the industrial park and the Wildstone Highlands, if that ends up when that gets developed. Then the last one here are the parks projects. We haven't updated any of the projects. These are all the ones in the current bylaw. We've increased the price for inflation. That's it, because we haven't done any work to the Parks Master Plan since it was created around 2016. So Parks Project 1 is to create so the timing's off. They haven't been updated, but it's something we'll have to do as part of this work because the time's already passed for some of these. But we can talk about that as part of the budget cycle and when we want to do them as well. So Project 1 is this neighborhood park in Southview. And that includes pit washroom or all-season washroom, play equipment, picnic tables, landscaping, irrigation. Project 2 is a upgrade to the Price Park to include a pit washroom, landscaping, and a pedestrian bridge. Project 3 is called the South City Park. It's a park on the south side. It's several acres. It's an urban forest style park, pit washrooms, trail benches, picnic tables. Project 4 is the Mount Royal Panorama Park, so to put an all-season washroom, play equipment, picnic tables, landscaping, irrigation. Project 5 is Idlewild Park. It's to install a new outdoor fitness park and the archaeological study for that. Project 6 is in Baker Park to install winterized washrooms in some kind of trails. Project 7 is to do some park upgrades in Moyer Park. Some of this might have been done since the Parks Master Plan was done 10 years ago, but this is the project that was identified: a pit washroom, play equipment, trails, fencing, landscaping, and irrigation. But
Counselor Stetzky.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's one more that we should add, and that's Shadow Mountain, the park access potentially to the St. Mary's River. It's shown up recently as an issue where a couple of people that traditionally have accessed the St. Mary's River with their kayaks about 2-3 weeks ago, and there's fresh signage down at Shadow Mountain telling them they can't go there anymore. So we do have quite a large piece of land adjacent to that initially was set aside to try and ensure future public access to St. Mary's River. It's very steep, will require a fair bit of trail work, but I do think it should appear on the list here somewhere.
Counselor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the concern about access for folks who are kayaking or boating on St. Mary's River. From my perspective, I wonder if our efforts might be better placed to advocate to the province to ask them to focus on that issue. I feel like that is a bit outside of our scope, but I do think that's an opportunity for advocacy, that we could let the province know that we have residents who've raised that issue, but I think the province would be able to better assist with access to the river.
Thank you. Counselor Bissett.
Thank you. And I was also thinking about, with the advent of the new daycare facility, we're going to be removing play equipment outside of Western Financial Place, and whether that should be either reallocated across the road or across into Belmont Park, into that area. And that's not on our list because that's would be a new project.
So, Councilor Bissett through the mayor, just to be clear, like, these projects are triggered by growth. And so there's this whole other list of
Yes, good point.
park projects that we have in our capital budget program. And so things like that particular project will come in a capital budget request for this year, because we're going to need to make a plan. So the estimate's being created, and we have a significant capital project list of requests for park projects. This is specifically around growth.
All right,
Thanks for that
thank you.
clarification.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, Counselor Stetzky, Counselor Peabody.
Yeah, thank you. So the province has been doing a bit of a study looking at access to the St. Mary's River right from St. Mary's Lake to the Kootenai River, and it's extremely limited. And when this fairly large piece of land was given to the city, it was very clear in the transfer documents and information that it was to potentially provide access to the St. Mary's River in the future. So I think it's kind of an obligation that we received when the city agreed to accept that as parkland up by Shadow Mountain.
That's Peabody.
Thank you, Mayor. Correct me if I'm wrong. If we want to accept all these projects, but we're uncomfortable with the increase in the DCC rates that we want to charge, can we adjust the assist rate to lower the DCC rates paid by developers?
Councillor Peabody through the mayor, that's correct. And we can play with that a bit here on the next point if we want, if council wants to. Again, the only thing is the assist factor's got to be paid for by the taxpayers.
Yes.
Just to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and that's
we
what the
can adjust
conversation.
assist.
Yeah, and that's the conversation here, is trying to find that balance between what developers can afford to pay, and we'll actually encourage development in Cranbrook. And then what is going to have to be burdened by the taxpayers, and what we're going to have to borrow for. And it's, yeah, no, I appreciate your answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Popoff.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So with respect to Councilor Stetzky's request that staff start looking at that access to the river down at Shadow Mountain, I think that discussion needs to come back to council. What is the priority? What's the cost? All those things before we start dedicating staff's time at this point to an item that has not been identified by council as being a priority. So let's get that conversation first. If it is a priority, then, where does that fit into your priority list? But right now, To my understanding, that's not a priority that council has directed staff on, so.
Thank you.
I think Councilor Pop, I think it's noted that CEO Vircho alluded to that if it's a valid project, but it wouldn't be a growth triggered project likely. So we'll probably won't involve that in the DCC discussion, but we can certainly have that conversation about where we want to work on that.
Mr. Graham.
Yeah, just kind of talking about what Councillor Peabody mentioned. So are we going to go through with this list again now and talk about assist factor one by one? Or like we could be here for 10 hours here. So how are we going to handle this going forward? And what kind of a document are we bringing to the public? And what kind of changes will be made to that document after we've consulted with the public, the developers, the chamber, our economic development officer? Like, I'm curious to know what his thoughts are, as he's dealing with development all the time and people looking at this. So how are we, like, fine, these projects are there, like, they're valid, you've identified them and worked hard on them, but what's our step of, okay, great, everybody hates this, so how are we going to change that then? Are we doing this now, or are we doing this after some public consultation?
Councillor Graham through the mayor. What I was hoping to get with the next point in number 4 is that if council's not happy with the rate, if you could give us a rate you'd like to potentially see, and then we can come back with what the assist factor could be. Well, we only have 5 assist factors to play with, but that's council's prerogative of what they feel is effective. But what we would do is take the rate, whatever council wants to see, back to the development group, the development people in the city, the developers, everybody you listed, public engagement, the public, and get their feedback too. So we could go back with the rate you have now, and then we could discuss it after the feedback, or we could hit that hard number right now. But that's the intent of this meeting, is to, if council wants to start playing with the assist factor or not.
Just a supplemental?
Certainly.
Okay, I would, first of all, I don't think we're going to get a number tonight personally. I would prefer to just go out with this document and say, here's the project, here's what it's going to cost us. Where are you at with this? I think that's our best, because like, I can sit here and be like, well, I want the status quo. Councillor Peabody might say, I want 30%, and somebody might say, I want it all. Like, so I don't think we're going to get a unified number personally. I'm just speaking for myself, but I would much rather come out with this package and then go, and then we can work backwards from there based on what we're hearing. Because I might say status quo, but meeting with some of the development community, like, oh, you know what, we can see the value in these projects. We could handle some increase. So I don't know what I don't know. So that's my thought.
Councillor Graham to the mayor, I think that's valid, and we can certainly look in that direction. So rather than having this be an exercise of council tonight to see those options, we could move forward with options as a part of that public consultation process to get feedback that would show everything from what is proposed to heavily assisted and some ranges in between. I think that would be and it's going to be the same thing with public input. The development community, rightfully so, is going to look after their best interest, and I'm sure they would rather say that they don't want any DCCs. The taxpayer who's been paying taxes, who's got failing infrastructure in front of their home, would say, well, should I be paying for this in addition to the growth components? That's a challenging conversation. We don't envy ourselves having to be in the room, and we don't envy council having to be a part of making that difficult conversation as well. But I think we can transparently kind of bring those range of options through that public consultation and communication process, and then that feedback can come back to the council table with a potential range of options.
I would agree with that. I would think this is an awful lot of information we've got here tonight to come up with an assist factor. I don't think we've had enough time to ponder this and go through it. Yeah, I would agree with that. I got Councillor Popoff, then Councillor.
So as we're going out to the community, the business community, the developers and everything, this is great to show the line items. But for the visual people, I'd like to see it on the map, the city map. This is the red, the orange, the green in those areas, and then refers to this and kind of put that together for a greater understanding. The greater understanding, the less confusion, and probably the less grief we're all going to get. Thank you.
How much work does that involve?
Councilor
know what I
Pop-Up,
mean?
the mayor,
It
no,
depends how much
we
work
have
that-
the ability to do it, and I would rather invest time in better communication and clear communication upfront rather than reactively having to deal with it later. So that's a smart idea.
Thanks, Mike. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor Price. I appreciate where the conversation has gone. I do wonder, however, if we might be in a good position this evening to make a motion on item number 3, and then it sounds like the thought is to call it for the night and move to community engagement, which I certainly support. So if the mayor and the table are interested, I would like to move motion 3B. Yeah, that council directs staff to not remove projects from the DCC project list. I believe that would be an appropriate starting point for this community engagement.
Most seconder? Councillor Graham? Pardon me? Councillor Graham seconds. Discussion. Councillor Brissette.
So does that mean including the red projects? Or are those gone automatically and it's just the green and the yellow?
Right now in that 24,000, or 23, the number that was provided to you for the single without the suites, they're gone at that point.
Okay. But I'm just saying on the project list, Councillor raised the motion now to not remove. I thought that we're removing the red ones. And so we're going to just stick with the green and yellow with that motion.
That is correct.
That is my intent.
Yes,
Thank you. That's a great clarification.
they're shown as red on there to show that they've already been removed,
Okay.
and just to show that we've proactively taken those steps to
We just didn't
remove as
want
many as
red
possible.
added in again.
You know, that's, yes, we don't want them back in there either.
Yeah, I think that's a really good suggestion. You know, we're really in discussion and draft stage and all this, so let's be honest, we want something to move further down the road, we can remove it anyway, so. And it's gonna give us time to take this package and dive a little deeper into it, eh? So, yeah.
We should talk about item 6 again, sir.
Mike, do you have a comment?
We'd like to see if council would still be wanting to discuss item 6. And 7. 7 is important for going to do the engagement, but item 6 does speak to the waivers, and I know we've had some discussions in different forums with council on what their thoughts are, because that's again, that would help us go forward.
Okay.
Unless there's a desire to have that as be a part of a consultation process.
I think that's fair, so we'll
We
deal
just
with.
haven't voted yet.
Hey,
We haven't voted on item 3B.
no, that's what I'm saying, we'll deal with 3 first, and then we'll look at that. Councillor Ray.
Thanks, Mayor Price. Thanks again to Councillor Blissett for the clarification. Yeah, definitely my intent that we're looking at green and yellow, so that's very good clarification, but that we're not picking and choosing to throw out some other individual projects. I just have a couple quick comments. One is, you know, I think this is a very good example of constructive challenge where the governance body is challenging management to tell us how you got here, tell us your thinking. So I really appreciate the time that everyone has put into that, and that our focus is on governance oversight, that we're doing that on behalf of all of the citizens of Cranbrook, whether they're individual taxpayers or developers. So I think that's been a really good process. And I do think it's important to recognize for us and everyone in the community that we have very skilled, educated, and experienced subject matter experts. So just because I got elected to council does not mean that I magically became an engineer, because I certainly did not. So I think it's important to recognize that. And so I think it's very valuable. Like, it was really good, right, for us and the community to be able to go through these and have a sense of what we're looking at. But to recognize that we have, as I say, very skilled subject matter experts, and it's not our job to magically try to become engineers, which would not be possible anyways. And I think, once again, as we touched on in the committee of the whole, there's an interdependency between DCCs and future development. So we need to keep up with our infrastructure to enable future development. So paying DCCs is part of that ecosystem that allows development to continue. So it's not a win-lose thing, it's a win-win. Let's win together and DCCs at an affordable rate that works for developers, but also doesn't overburden the residents, right? We are interdependent. So we need to be successful together.
Yeah, I would certainly echo that as well. We've come a long way since 2006 when we started talking about an asset management plan. There's a rationale. Got the rationale, you know, for our capital projects by our proven asset management plan. And that's changed constantly. And this is the next piece. This is the next piece if we're going to really take care of the city going forward. The DCC is just a matter of fact, that's the growth component, you know, when you look at our asset management plan, that's just maintaining our current assets. So, you know, our engineering and planning in the last 10 years, 15 years have brought this full circle. We came from nothing to there, and we've seen evidence of that here in the last year or so with these projects that have been kicked down the road. And we've had to pick them up, and they're probably costing 3 to 4 times what they would have had they been taken care of back in the day. They weren't, and that limits us going forward with making improvements in the community. So I think it's extremely responsible of our engineering and planning, our staff in general, for bringing this forward. And it's really hard to argue. I mean, because, you know, the rationale, right from our asset management plan, right through the DCs, it just demonstrates that so clearly. So thank you. So we'll go on to, is it 3A? 3B. Yeah, apologize. That's right. Okay. That council directs staff to not remove projects from the DCC project list. And we had a mover was, yeah, and Councillor Graham, I believe, seconded. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much, guys. That was good discussion. And Mike, you're recommending that we move on to motion 6?
I believe so. If council's willing, I think we could address that item now. But I think the other items, as we alluded to, may be more incorporated into some of that feedback or can just come to the table later.
Certainly, Councillor Graham, comment?
Well, I would just like to move item 6, probably supposed to be C, but I have 6B twice. So that council directs staff to include certain permissible legislative waivers or reductions in the draft DCC bylaw.
What number was that?
6BB. Or 6C, but it doesn't say C.
I don't have that on here. And the council directs staff to include certain permissibles? Okay. The council direct staff to include certain permissible legislated waivers and reductions in the draft DC bylaw. Councillor Graham, seconder. Councillor Bissett, discussion. Councillor Ray.
Thank you. I wonder if management could speak to the recommendation from the consultant on this. My understanding was that the recommendation was to look at a granting system. So maybe you could talk about the pros and cons of either of those approaches.
Sure. Councillor Ray through the mayor. So our current, so there's 2 differences with those. I'll state firstly, our current bylaw has no grants or waivers in it. They've been removed, so council's aware of that. The option between 6B and 6BB, I apologize for my error with 6C. 6, to include the legislative waivers, it means that anybody who comes forward that meeting those waiver eligibility receives the waiver, and that the municipality must pay for their DCCs. So we don't have a limit on who can come and use that, and it's very tough to budget. The idea behind 6B and creating a granting system is that we can work with finance and come up with a process, a policy that sets a certain value, and we can change the value depending on what, or work with council on that program, but then they have to apply to council to obtain the DCC waiver. So council has more of a say on who actually gets the waiver and can say, and leave it open for a little bit more of what, because it's not under that legislated program. All we can't do is assist business, but we can pretty much, if somebody wants to have their DCCs paid by council, as long as they're not a business or fall under one of those waivers, we can do it.
Certainly.
Thank you. So just to follow up, so I will be voting against this motion. My preferred motion is the actual 6B regarding the granting system.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Popoff.
Thank you, Chris. I listened to what you said about permissible legislative waivers. Can you give me an example?
Councillor Popoff through the mayor. So there's four legislative waivers that we can do. One is for not-for-profit rental housing, including supportive living housing. So that's your non-for-profit housing. B is for-profit affordable rental housing. We would have to set criteria and a policy for what that means. C is for the subdivision of small lots that is designed to result in low greenhouse gas emissions. Again, we'd have to set in policy exactly what that means. And D, or this fourth one, is a development that is designed to result in low environmental impact. Again, we'd have to define that, what that means.
So just a supplemental, so those are already there by way of government requirements and they're itemized. So then if we go to the other one, granting system, it could be anything that comes forward.
So those
Are there criteria for?
So Councillor Popoff through the mayor. So those four are set out in legislation as something that council may adopt. We don't have to.
Yes.
Through a granting system, it can be pretty much whatever council wants, but we can't assist business through the charter.
Okay, so it's open-ended.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Graham.
Thank you. And that's kind of what I had interpreted. So that's why I put this one forward. So it isn't open-ended. It's a little bit more prescribed. It's something we haven't done before. So maybe looked at a prescribed measure. And if we run into issues, it's something that can be updated at the 5-year update.
Further? All in favor?
Are we voting on 6C? Okay. Which leaves it more up to council as opposed to more of a
Prescribed.
prescribed. Okay. Thank you.
Certainly. Yes, you may.
Thank you. So in the staff report, the grant program is described as allocating through budget and allotment of money for council to apply towards DCC fees of development projects. So I like that there's parameters on how much money we're talking about. It's through an application process, would only apply to non-business entities, or more specifically is defined by council through a future policy, not aid to business. The optional legislative waivers would apply to all development applications that fit the criteria for the waiver through the granting program. And as the city must still pay the waived DCCs to reserves, a grant program is preferable from a budgeting standpoint as it is more predictable. Council can pick none, some, or all 4 waivers to implement. So I just want to highlight that I feel the granting approach is a more controlled, planned approach that gives council, more control over the situation. So that, I just want everyone to be clear. So that is why I am voting against this motion, because it is not the granting program.
Wow, very interesting perspective. Thank you. Yeah, we'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? It carried. Thank you. Motion 7. Motion 7 is that council approves staff to start engagement on the DCC bylaw update with the development community and the public. Mover, Councillor Stetsky. Councillor Graham. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. That went pretty well. Very good. Hey, Curtis, that went a little smoother than maybe we anticipated. Good discussion, guys. Really good. Okay, and that brings us now to the end to mayor and councilors' reports and inquiries. Let's start with Councilor Graham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was a busy week last week down at UBCM. Opportunities to meet with our counterparts and hear speeches and meet with, we met with some provincial staff and ministers just trying to move things forward for Cranbrook. And I think we had some good dialogue, and hopefully the checkbook opens and we get a check in the mail. I remember Robbie said the check's in the mail.
Yeah, yeah, and we've been told that check's in the mail, so be interested. Yeah, and just on that, I believe staff have got a communication going out to the public that covers off an overview of our meetings last week. So yeah, great. Councilor Popoff.
Yeah, so we don't want to talk about UBCM?
Yeah.
Okay, we got so. Similar to our FCM, at the national level, the same key priorities were there. Crime, mental health, drug addiction, how do you deal with bail reform, starting to come up with those ideas. Lots of support that way, well, unanimous support. The whole issue about housing, ways and means to have more housing in your communities, and also a focus on factory-built housing, less expensive, less time when you're doing infill lots, et cetera, factory housing. The other thing that came forward that we all need to put a flag on is the Heritage Conservation Act that's being redrafted. I sat in on the preliminary as well as others, and it's local governments were standing up and raising huge issues about how this could, even though the current act is not, it isn't very timely and workable, that this one's not, maybe the way it's being presented is not going to be of any further value to local governments, developers, explorers, the forestry industry. So I would suggest that we, at the regional district level or at this table, we encourage the chamber, the business communities, and municipalities to get together and have a real workshop here in our region with the agents from the Ministry of Forestry to present to us and get some immediate discussion on learning what this is about, what the challenges and hopeful successes are, but getting engaged with this Heritage Conservation Act. So that'd be my recommendation. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, is it in scope or out of scope to talk about the four-way stop on Baker and 10th? If it is, what is the plan for the temporary four-way stop? Are we going permanent four-way stop, or are we going to spend taxpayer dollars to put in a repair and or put in a new traffic light?
Councillor Popoff through the mayor, we're currently undertaking a traffic study of that intersection to determine if a four-way stop is adequate or if another upgrades are needed in the long term.
Thank you. And if you listen to, is that you beeping, Curtis? Yeah. Anyway, if you follow Facebook, it's about 80% leave it as it is, and 20% some of the seniors are having a challenge crossing the road, but 80% in favor of keeping it as a four-way stop. Thank you.
Councilor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. It was an honor to attend UBCM and represent the citizens of Cranbrook last week. So I look forward to that press release coming out and happy to chat with anyone about that. Just a couple of shout outs for some successful projects. Shout out to Santana Patton, one of our planners, for all her work to organize the active transportation conference between Kimberley and Cranbrook at the beginning of this month. I was able to pop up for part of that conference, and they did an excellent job. And so thank you, Santana. Great to see the partnership between Cranbrook and Kimberley. There was a big contingent of people who biked down on e-bikes to come down to Encore. It was pretty awesome to see that picture of like a huge flock of e-bikes that came all the way down on Rails to Trails. So that was really neat. And just, if we can get out our magic wand, what would it take for Cranbrook to have a conference center so we can host the conferences here? But it was a great partnership between Cranbrook and Kimberley on that. And we should be very proud of Santana and share our congratulations with her. It was great work on that. And I think we should all be proud in our community about all the development that's currently underway. So we've got a number of multi-family developments. Everybody's excited about the crane that's in Cranbrook. Good news for the Green Home project that's going to be getting underway with IHA and the province. Of course, we made the announcement about the upcoming child care facility next to Western Financial Place. So I just hope everybody in the community is feeling the excitement and the pride of everything that's going on in Cranbrook. A shout out as well to our nonprofit community. They're such a huge part of our success. And so want to thank the Kin Club for a successful season at the water park by the college. With their support, we were able to get that back up and running, and it was very well used and enjoyed. And if you have had little kids, you know that they love water parks. And so, yeah, big thanks to the Kin Club for really leading the way on that. And of course, tomorrow is Truth and Reconciliation Day. And thank you to our friends and neighbors in Acom for the annual event they'll be holding. And I look forward to attending that.
Thank you very much. Councilor Brissette.
Well, thank you. Now, years ago, we used to have a transportation committee. I think it was called that. It was a standing committee, and they would make recommendations to council about stop signs or whatever. Is that committee still around?
Yeah, so it's the Transportation Safety Committee.
Okay.
And so what that is rather than inserting, I guess, the political realm into engineering and traffic safety aspects, it's engineering and fire and bylaw and RCMP
Okay.
that sit around the table and make the decisions. And so there is no longer like a political component.
So there is still sort of a
That-
group of people
so-
that
so
talk
that-
about this.
That's correct. So what happens is now, every time council gets an email about it needing a stop sign or a crosswalk, all of that goes on the agenda. And
Yeah.
then that committee meets and goes through every one of those, and it's a very long and tedious day.
Sure.
So I just shout out to the team, and under Naomi actually chairs that. Does a
So,
great job.
so with that, there have been a number of citizens bringing forward concerns about driving safety and people driving recklessly, speeding down side roads. And we know the police can't be everywhere all the time. And so I wonder if we could maybe record a list of those streets and have that brought to that committee is how can we do, what can we do to increase traffic calming? So when those roads are being repaved, what can we do to slow down the traffic on those streets? So for example, there's been a number of people write in about 4th Street, people going across at, rapidly across there. There's concerns definitely on 7th. I think 3rd is better off because you've got a few stop signs, but there's definitely concerns about 7th and 4th that I can tell you, and maybe others. So I wonder if that could be dealt with by that group of people.
And certainly, those types of concerns are raised. And so there is discussion around, not just physical improvements, but our speed reader boards, and also because enforcement's involved in targeted enforcement as well. So
Sure.
those conversations are happening. And just so council's aware, Naomi does get back to the writer on each one of these of the outcome as well.
Yeah.
So that's all taking place, but it's not coming to this table.
Well, I wonder too, if when we're doing our roads program and we're repaving and redoing roads, if that traffic calming could be part of the consideration at that time.
Yeah, Councilor Brissette, to the mayor, absolutely. It is a challenge. Often those traffic calming items are like extra concrete, extra bulb outs. The crosswalk improvements done on Laurie School, that is a traffic calming and a pedestrian safety mechanism. And that does actually work because visually the road looks narrower, so you slow down. So I agree that it's speed bumps are a difficult thing, but there are other measures that we do have. We also have speed reader boards. So we do take it into account. But we also recognize, when we've proposed some of those extra items on projects, sometimes you get pushback as well.
For
So,
sure, I would expect complaints.
yes, but
Yes.
it is noted, and I would rather have, focus on safety in some of those items. So it is something that we're trying to add to our toolbox more when we are doing project planning and scoping.
Okay, great, thank you. And then also, I wanted to say thank you to staff for their work with Ministry of Education and Childcare on the childcare facility. That is not normally part of our mandate, but really thanks to this council and working with staff, we saw that there was a grave need in our community. And so we took action. It's not downloading from the province. The province was there to provide funds for this. And because they know of the importance for children and families, and now and into the future, because we know good quality childcare makes a difference for lives. And so I'm very pleased that this is moving ahead. I'm grateful that an alternative location was found, and that this is going to happen for us. And it's because of leadership here that this happened. We've taken a lot of flack over this, but Mayor Price and I sat at the regional district, and we heard from the nurses union talking about how not having enough childcare in Cranbrook was limiting the ability of the hospital to get enough nursing staff. And I don't think people understand some of the implications, but it's much bigger than we even thought of. So it's not going to be easy. There are some challenges as far as staffing and that, but I'm grateful that we were able to move ahead and that we're now not the only part of the province not taking advantage of this program. So this is really important for families, and I just wanted to say thank you to our staff and CAO Fercho and Tina, I know, and maybe others too. That's why I use the general staff term, so I don't leave anybody out.
Just a reflection back on that from staff too is really, thank you to council, because council bore the brunt of some of the backlash from the community. Why are we doing this, location, all of that. But, as you said, throughout all of that, at the end, we've got success, and I think it'll be an excellent project for the future of Cranbrook. So thank you for that. I'll pass that on to the team.
Wonderful, great. Councilor Peabody?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilor Teske?
Yeah, thank you. A couple other things from UBCM last week. As I mentioned, Gregory Robertson is now the Minister for Housing, and of course they've announced billions of dollars coming forward for non-market affordable housing. And I know we'll look for every opportunity to apply for grants when that actually comes out as an opportunity. One of the other sessions I attended was very interesting. It was a recent court decision down on the coast that said that Aboriginal title for land can apply over fee simple lands. Now, that is a real shift from where things have been at. Aboriginal title up till now has been it has been solely focused on Crown land. So this is a change, and the lawyer's basically message was, watch this, it is serious potentially, because it changes the landscape. Secondly, though, they said currently that decision only applies to this piece of land in Richmond. They also said that it will be appealed. It'll go to the, of course, BC Court of Appeal, and regardless of what that decision is, either to maintain it or not, it will go to the Supreme Court of Canada, probably about a 7-year process in general before the Supreme Court rules on it one way or another. But it is a major change in applying Aboriginal title. So that's one to watch. The closing presentation was from Premier Eby, and of course there was a question period afterwards. One of the questions was, will the provincial government increase granting to libraries? Of course, the last time the province increased grants to libraries was 2009. There's been a real push to double it to 30 million from about 15 million, which of course would benefit our library here in Cranbrook and libraries across British Columbia. And Premier Eby's response was, I love libraries, but no, not now. So that means that the decisions coming up on the budget shortfall for the library are going to rest with this council. The province is not going to be providing any assistance. Opportunity for people that care about the city and want to learn. The ads are out for joining city committees. There are a number of vacancies on a number of committees, and I would encourage citizens to have a look. It is a really, really good way to learn more about the city of Cranbrook and to give back to the community. We did meet and talk with Interior Health about a number of issues, and one, of course, was the youth detox and recovery center. I did have a brief meeting with the Minister of Health, Minister Osborne, afterwards, and said we are going to continue to advocate for this youth recovery center beds being located here. So I would like to ask, and I'm not sure whether this requires a motion or what, but a follow-up letter go to the Minister of Health, since she was not part of that, our specific discussions. I think it would be worthwhile sending her a letter listing those topics again, and looking for a kind of a definite response, yes or no, to all of our questions, rather than just let them kind of hang out there. And that's one of them being support for this youth detox and recovery center for Cranbrook. So do we need a motion or just general agreement that we should follow up?
Maybe a motion.
We'd just be looking for direction if we're going to send a letter on behalf of the city from council.
Yeah. So do you want that as a motion or just?
Sure, we'll make a motion. If you'd like to make a motion.
So then I'll make a motion that the city follow up with the Minister of Health specifically to get responses to the 3 issues we raised, one of which, of course, is the establishing a detox and recovery beds for youth here in Cranbrook or southeastern Kootenays.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Peabody, discussion? Just a comment on that. I think it is a good idea. Councillor Stetsky, certainly I felt there was a little bit difference this year than last year when we went down there and met with ministers last year. I felt that, you know, dealing with staff that we dealt with down there this year, I felt that they were truly listening a little more closely. And what I felt was really interesting was they understood some of the things, the initiatives and the undertakings that we're doing in Cranbrook. Where usually you're talking, you know, to a minister or something. It's just, it's a high get to know you, you know, so you can move forward. But I really felt much better this year about how we were received than last year, and that the interaction was there, and they were aware of some of the, again, some of the initiatives that we were undertaking in Cranbrook. So I felt that was very good. So, you know, it's worthwhile to keep it, you know, keep the communication going, and yeah. So on that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Yeah. And I don't think I have any more to add than what's been said already tonight. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Ray, Councillor Graham, all in favor? Adjourn.